I thought the worst thing about growing old was loneliness, until I realized it was betrayal from your own blood. My name is Harold Whitmore, 71 years old, retired structural engineer, and a widower for 2 years now. I live in the house I designed and built with my own hands back in 1999, a 2-story home in Aurora, Colorado, that holds more memories than I can count. Every nail, every floorboard, every inch of this place carries Eleanor's touch, and mine intertwined. The neighbors know me as the quiet handyman who'll fix their fence or help with a stubborn pipe. They bring casseroles sometimes, less often now that Eleanor's been gone. I keep her garden alive, though I'll never have her touch with the roses. Her perfume bottle still sits on our dresser. I can't bear to move it. I never expected to live here alone, but cancer doesn't care about plans. 10 months ago, my daughter Melanie and her husband Grayson asked to move in temporarily after losing their apartment during what Grayson called a career transition. He'd been laid off from his financial advisor position. At least that's what they told me. Melanie, always the ambitious one, was climbing the corporate ladder while supporting him through this rough patch. I didn't hesitate. That's what family does. I never charged rent. I paid the utility bills that doubled overnight. I bought groceries without complaint. What's money at my age anyway? It was worth it to have family close, to hear footsteps in the hallway again, even if they were rarely home. Melanie maintained the appearance of a loving daughter, kissing my cheek when she'd rush out the door in her tailored suits, but never lingering long in conversation. Grayson was all smiles and compliments about my woodworking or Eleanor's garden, though there was always something calculated in his eyes when he'd say, "This place is amazing, Harold. You really built something special here." Thursday evening found me alone, as usual, eating leftover meatloaf from Eleanor's recipe. I still can't get it quite right. The seasoning is always off somehow. I sat in Eleanor's recliner, the leather worn smooth from years of use, watching the local news with the volume low while glancing occasionally at her photo on the mantel. When my phone rang and Melanie's name lit up the screen, I smiled despite myself. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was warm but distant, like she was checking off a task. "Did you eat dinner?" "Just finished. Your mother's meatloaf. You know you can order groceries through an app now, right? I showed you last month." "I like going to the store," I said. "Gives me somewhere to be." We chatted about nothing important. Then I mentioned, "Had a small scare yesterday. Left the stove burner on but caught it in time." The line went quiet. When she spoke again, her concern sounded rehearsed. "You need to be more careful, Dad." I know. Old man moments. "We're still in Scottsdale at that digital marketing conference," she said, changing the subject. "Having dinner with clients tonight." "Well, enjoy yourself. Don't work too hard." "I love you, Dad." "Love you too, sweetheart." I reached to hang up but fumbled the button. I could hear rustling on the other end. She must have dropped the phone into her purse. I was about to try again when voices emerged, muffled but audible through what must have been speakerphone. "Jeremy, he left the stove on again." Melanie's voice. "What if he burns the house down?" Jeremy? Who was Jeremy? Then I realized, Grayson. His first name was Grayson Jeremy Maddox. "It's time," Grayson replied. "He's a sweet guy, but he's turning into a liability." My finger hovered over the end call button, but I couldn't press it. "The house is probably worth close to $900,000 now," Melanie said, her tone calculating. "We sell it, move him to somewhere nice, and use the rest for the Boulder house." The casual cruelty in Grayson's voice made my stomach turn. Melanie laughed. "He's so grateful when I call. He has no idea we're planning this." "Strike while he still trusts us," Grayson said, "before he loses too much clarity." The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a thud. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock Eleanor gave me 15 years ago for our anniversary. I sat frozen, heart pounding, breath shallow. Every detail in the room suddenly felt hostile, like the walls themselves had heard the betrayal. I remembered working double shifts at age 50 to afford Melanie's college tuition, $52,000 over 4 years. Her crying over wanting a dream wedding that cost $30,000, well beyond what I could afford. But I paid anyway, co-signing her car loan when her credit score wasn't good enough, covering Grayson being out of work for 8 months. Just last month, quietly paying the $240 steakhouse bill for our anniversary dinner. I walked to the kitchen and pulled out old folders Eleanor had insisted we keep. Photos spilled out. Melanie as a baby, taking her first steps right there on the kitchen floor. The dollhouse I built by hand. Spending nights in the garage after long workdays. The bay window Eleanor loved reading by. 6 months of overtime to afford. Our wedding photo. Melanie whispering, "You're the best father in the world." It echoed cruelly now. I could almost hear Eleanor's voice. Don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful. She forgot. Completely. For the first time in months, I stood with purpose. My grief morphed into something else. Clarity. They underestimated me. They thought I was frail and docile. They were already spending money I hadn't even lost yet. I looked around the house, not with sentiment, but like a man preparing to dismantle a monument. I walked to the old filing cabinet in the den and pulled out a business card I'd kept for 3 years. Frank Calder, estate and real property attorney. I picked up the phone. They made plans for my future. I was about to rewrite all of theirs. I barely slept that night. The betrayal echoed in my mind, each word cutting deeper with every replay. By morning, I'd moved beyond shock to something cold and precise. The same mindset I used when solving structural problems during my engineering days. Frank Calder's office was exactly as I remembered from when Eleanor and I had updated our wills 3 years ago. Modest, but lined with legal books and framed case victories. At 55, Frank had the steady hands and measured speech of someone who'd seen it all. "Harold," he said, rising to shake my hand. "It's been a while." "Too long," I replied. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "How can I help?" I told him everything. The overheard phone call, the betrayal, the weight of it all. He listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "Eleanor was a smart woman," Frank said finally. "Always wanted things in order. She'd be furious about this." "She would," I agreed. "But what can I do legally? Can they force me into a home? Sell my house?" Frank leaned forward. "Let me be clear. The house is legally yours. There's no power of attorney in place. You're mentally competent. They cannot sell, access funds, or force institutionalization without legal action." "Then what if I sell it?" I asked. A slight smile crossed his face. "Then it's your move. They won't see it coming." That afternoon, I drove to Summit Community Bank. I chose it because it was smaller, more discreet than the national chains. David Monroe, head of private banking, met me in a quiet office away from the main floor. "Mr. Whitmore, how can we help you today?" "I need to establish a new account under trust protection, and I need absolute discretion." David asked no invasive questions, simply nodded and began preparing the paperwork. Within an hour, I had a new account established, ready for what was coming next. On my way home, I stopped at the post office and set up a P.O. box along with mail forwarding service. I also ordered a burner phone from an electronics store, basic but functional. Control would be my new watchword. Lucas Brennan came highly recommended by an old colleague as a real estate broker who specialized in fast, discreet, investor-targeted sales. At 42, he had the energy I lacked and the connections I needed. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, stepping into my foyer the next morning. "Let's see what we're working with." I watched as he moved through my home, our home. Eleanor's and mine, with a professional's eye. He ran his hand along the custom hardwood floors I'd installed myself, noted the hand-built shelving, tested the solid core doors. "This is turnkey investor gold," Lucas said, genuinely impressed. "We can price it at $890,000 and get a cash buyer within 7 days. I need speed, privacy, and no open houses," I told him. "Understood. I have a list of pre-screened private investment groups looking for long-term rental properties. They'll jump at this." While Lucas made his calls, I began researching senior living apartments. Silver Pines in Littleton caught my eye. Independent living, quiet, no frills, perfect for disappearing. The property manager, a kind woman named Patricia, showed me a one-bedroom unit on the 2nd floor, overlooking a small garden. "It's not fancy," she warned. "It's perfect," I said. I signed a short-term lease under my middle name, James, for anonymity. I paid the security deposit and first month's rent in cash. Back home, I began mentally planning the physical transition. What to take, what to leave, what to destroy. I ordered moving boxes, packaging supplies, and researched discreet moving companies that wouldn't ask questions. That evening, I went through Eleanor's things methodically. Her reading glasses, her gardening gloves, her favorite blue cardigan that still smelled faintly of her perfume. I packed only what mattered most, the essence of our life together. I found our old legal records in the filing cabinet, ones that proved home ownership predated Melanie's marriage. I photographed them with my phone and emailed the images to myself, then to Frank. When Frank called the next day, his voice carried good news. "I've drafted the property listing agreement and sale contract, all fully binding. We'll file everything with the county clerk's office today." "And the money?" I asked. "Wire transfer directly to your new Summit account. The buyer wants a walkthrough in 3 days, with closing scheduled for 7 business days after that." "Perfect," I said. That night, after confirming the legal preparations with Frank, I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd once helped Melanie with her algebra homework, where I'd written checks for her college tuition, where I'd signed the invoice for her wedding. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a folded note I'd made earlier that day. On it, camera charger, hidden surveillance, motion activated. I clicked Order Now on my laptop. The next morning, Lucas called with news. "We have an offer. Full asking price, all cash, no contingencies. They're an investment group that specializes in high-end rental properties." "Accept it," I said without hesitation. "They want to close as soon as possible. Are you ready for this?" "More than ready." After finalizing the property listing, I returned home with new eyes. I was no longer a grieving widower. I was an engineer with a blueprint for justice. I pulled out our old suitcases, the ones Eleanor and I had used for road trips down the California coast. Carefully, I packed her jewelry box, our wedding photo in the wooden frame I'd carved myself, her copy of To Kill a Mockingbird with the bookmark, still on page 247, my engineering degree, our photo albums, and the recipe notebook filled with Eleanor's neat handwriting. In our bedroom, I opened the cedar chest at the foot of our bed and found a sealed envelope I'd forgotten about, a love letter Eleanor had written the night before her first chemotherapy session. I didn't open it, just placed it on top of my other essentials. Then I began erasing signs of Melanie and Grayson's presence. I removed the framed photos of them from the hallway wall. I emptied the drawers and closets they'd filled with their things. In Grayson's nightstand, I found unopened mail, credit card statements, one from a debt collection agency. I took photos of all of it and saved them to a USB drive. One credit account statement caught my eye. It was in my name, opened without my consent. I added that to my growing file. I called Eddie, a local locksmith who'd helped me years ago when we'd accidentally locked ourselves out. "Emergency security update," I told him. "I need every lock replaced today." Eddie arrived within 2 hours. No questions asked. He replaced every single lock. Front door, side entrance, garage, back patio. I paid cash, ensuring no record linked me to the job. These were solid pieces, Eddie said, examining the old locks. Whoever installed these knew what they were doing. That was me, I replied. I like things done right. The FedEx truck arrived the following afternoon with my special package. A spy camera disguised as a phone charger. Wi-Fi enabled with motion detection. It would be my eyes when I was gone. I read the manual twice, tested it in the living room by recording myself reading from the newspaper, then positioned it beside the front door, angled to capture the entryway, kitchen threshold, and the letter I would leave. I connected it to my burner phone using a secure app and set notification alerts. Then I wrote my final letter to Melanie and Grayson. The first draft was too angry, the second too cold, the third was just right, elegant, unforgiving, final. I ended it with, "You treated me like furniture to be moved and forgotten. Now learn what it's like to lose something irreplaceable." I placed the letter in a plain white envelope and signed the outside with Melanie and Grayson. My last task was the most practical. I hired front-range movers and storage to pack and transport Melanie and Grayson's belongings to a secure unit across town. I gave explicit instructions. No personal effects were to be damaged. I included 3 months of prepaid storage fees and a copy of the key, which I planned to leave taped inside my letter. As the movers worked, I made a final sweep of the house. I used bleach and gloves to wipe all fingerprints from surfaces they had touched. I deleted browser history and financial auto-logins on my home PC. I transferred remaining sentimental files and photos onto a separate USB drive. When the house was empty, except for the furniture I'd decided to leave behind, I placed a single family photo on the mantel, just Eleanor and me on our 30th anniversary. The night before the buyer's showing, I walked through each room slowly. I remembered Eleanor reading in the bay window, Melanie coloring on the floor with crayons. I paused at the kitchen table where I once explained interest rates to a teenage Melanie. I closed the lights one by one, ending with the porch lantern Eleanor had loved. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with an alert from the spy camera. Motion detected, 2:11 a.m. They called me a burden, but every inch of this house is a weapon carved by my own hands. My phone buzzed again. The motion sensor had triggered. I stared at the screen, watching shadows move across my former living room. The buyers? No. Too late for a showing. Someone was in my house. I tapped into the live feed. The darkness made it hard to see clearly, but I recognized the silhouettes immediately. Melanie and Grayson had returned early from their supposed conference. Perfect timing. I smiled for the first time in days. They were about to discover an empty home, changed locks, and the beginning of their new reality. I turned off the phone and went to bed. Morning would bring the chaos I'd engineered, but for now, I needed rest. The next day, I woke early and drove to Silver Pines with the last of my personal belongings. The apartment was sparse but clean, a blank canvas for whatever life I had left. I placed Eleanor's jewelry box on the dresser, our wedding photo beside the bed, and made a pot of coffee. I positioned myself in front of my burner phone, watching the camera feed. Nothing yet. They must have found a hotel after discovering they couldn't get in. But they would be back. People like Melanie and Grayson always come back for what they think belongs to them. At 5:14 that afternoon, a black Cadillac Escalade pulled into my former driveway. Melanie stepped out first, wearing designer sunglasses, scrolling through her phone. Grayson followed, visibly annoyed. Even without audio, I could tell they were arguing about something. They approached the front door with casual entitlement. Melanie dug out her keys. I leaned closer to the screen. She tried the front door key. It didn't work. She frowned, jiggled the handle, tried again. Nothing. Grayson said something, probably about the door swelling from weather. Melanie tried once more before Grayson walked around to the back door. I zoomed in on Melanie's face. The confusion was beautiful. Grayson returned, shaking his head. The garage remote didn't work either. He examined the front door lock more closely, then stepped back in shock. He'd realized these were new locks. Melanie pulled out her phone. I watched her lips move as she called my old landline, then my cell. Both disconnected, as planned. After several minutes of frantic discussion, Grayson noticed the kitchen window I'd deliberately left slightly ajar. He hoisted Melanie up awkwardly. Her coat caught on the frame as she climbed through. Moments later, she opened the front door from inside. They dragged in their suitcases, stepping into the emptiness I'd left behind. The camera captured their complete shock. Melanie spun around, taking in the barren living room. Grayson stormed from room to room, coming back with wide eyes and raised hands. Then Melanie noticed the envelope taped to the inside of the door. I'd positioned the camera perfectly for this moment. She tore it open and read aloud. Her face crumpled in disbelief. Grayson snatched the letter, reading over her shoulder. "He sold the house?" Grayson's voice came through clearly. "He took everything." Melanie's hands shook. "And left us storage info?" Melanie sank to the floor, the reality crashing down on her. "He can't do this. This is our house." Grayson paced, running his hands through his hair. "No, it was never our house. It was his. We never signed a thing." Melanie tried calling someone, probably their lawyer, but only reached voicemail. Grayson opened the empty fridge, finding only the sticky note I'd left. "Try nourishing yourselves for once." Their facade cracked completely. "This is your fault," Grayson shouted. "You kept pushing him." "You're the one who said he was losing it," Melanie fired back. "And you're the one who called him a burden while his phone was still on. You were supposed to handle the transfer of power of attorney. There was nothing to transfer. He never signed anything." The camera caught every word, every accusation, every tear. I felt nothing. Not pleasure, not pain. Just cold satisfaction that the truth was finally exposed. The final revelation came when Grayson admitted he'd never gotten another job. He'd been unemployed for 6 months, banking on my house money to pay off his debts. Melanie's sobs grew harder as she realized they had nowhere to go. Their apartment lease ended the following week, and they'd already told their landlord they were moving into Melanie's childhood home. As I watched her cry on my empty floor, I did something unexpected. I called her from my burner phone, blocking the number. She answered immediately, hope in her voice. "Dad." I said nothing, just listened to her breathing for 5 seconds, then hung up. The next morning, I sat in my new apartment, sipping coffee with Eleanor's photo beside the window. The burner phone was quiet, no new notifications. I replayed the spy cam footage from the night before, this time with the audio fully up. I studied Grayson's meltdown, Melanie's sobs, their screaming match. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. This wasn't about gloating. It was about justice. Later that morning, the closing was completed. Lucas Brennan called to confirm the sale had been finalized. The wire transfer of $890,000 was in process, confirmed by David Monroe at Summit Community Bank. I drove to Summit personally to sign the final documentation. I opened a trust account with limited access and private transfer protocols. Not even Melanie could trace the money now. Then I updated my will, removing Melanie and Grayson as heirs completely. Instead, I left everything to a new trustee, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. That evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Hi. It's Emma." My throat tightened. Emma Green, 31, my daughter from a relationship before Eleanor, estranged for nearly a decade. Melanie had always resented Emma and had gradually driven a wedge between us. "Emma," I managed. How did you find me? A friend still lives near the old neighborhood. She said something big was going down. Are you okay? I invited her for coffee at a quiet diner the next morning. Emma arrived looking more mature than I remembered. Her hair was shorter, her expression more confident. She worked as a freelance paralegal now, specializing in elder law and estate planning. If you need help making this airtight, she said after I explained everything, I can make sure your revenge isn't temporary. You're not surprised, I noted. Melanie's always had two faces, she replied, stirring her coffee. When you stopped returning my calls 5 years ago, I figured she was behind it. Emma offered to help legally reinforce the trust, file a notice of inheritance exclusion, and protect my estate. But we spent hours talking about more than legal matters. We talked about lost years, regret, forgiveness. Over the next few days, Emma helped me create a new revocable trust, naming herself as executor. She ensured the money was beyond challenge unless I was proven incompetent. She filed notices at the county courthouse. Melanie and Grayson had no claim to estate assets. I documented everything, saving camera footage as backup evidence in case of legal escalation. Emma also reviewed credit files, finding evidence that Grayson had opened a card in my name. She prepared a fraud packet, but I decided not to file it. The leverage was enough. I settled into Silver Pine's life more easily than expected. I attended movie night, joined chess games, took slow walks through the community garden. The regulars at Brews and Views, the local cafe, began recognizing me. Sarah, the barista, started reserving Harold's table by the window. We chatted often. Nothing romantic, just kindness and curiosity. I felt alive again. Not youthful, but alert, restored, and free. 10 days after the sale, I received a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. Dad. Please, Melanie pleaded. We didn't mean for it to get this far. We're being evicted. We have nowhere to go. Then another from Grayson, more aggressive. You had no right. That house should have been ours. We'll see you in court. I played both messages for Emma that evening when she visited. She smiled. They're panicking? Let them. I looked at my phone for a long moment. I didn't delete the messages. Instead, I forwarded them to Frank, then switched the phone off. They're not done yet, I said, but neither am I. 3 days later, Frank called. Melanie and Grayson had attempted to sue for undue influence and elder exploitation. Their lawyer was a junior attorney from an online legal firm, cheap and sloppy. Emma responded with bank transaction records, video evidence of their betrayal, and a mental competence evaluation from my primary care physician that we'd arranged beforehand. She filed a counter-notice of malicious claim. The case was dismissed within 24 hours. That same day, Grayson received notices from 2 creditors. His credit score had tanked. He was facing default on previous loans. Melanie's company learned of the lawsuit and put her on probation pending investigation. They tried to sublet their apartment, but the landlord found out and blocked the deal. I hadn't planned for their complete financial collapse, but I wasn't going to stop it either. The next day, Melanie showed up at Silver Pines unannounced. She tried to get past reception, but her name wasn't on any guest list. The staff called my apartment. Mr. Whitmore, there's a Melanie Maddox here to see you. I'm not accepting visitors, I replied. I watched through my curtain as Melanie paced in the parking lot, crying into her phone. After 20 minutes, she gave up and drove off. That night I wrote 2 letters, one to Melanie. You had all of me. But you wanted more than love. You wanted ownership. You got what you wanted, my absence. One to Eleanor. I kept my promise. I didn't let them take everything. I remembered what you said. I just wish you were here to see it. I placed Eleanor's letter beside her photo and mailed Melanie's to her last known address. The next day, I visited my old neighborhood one last time. I drove slowly past my former home. The new owners had painted the front door a cheerful yellow. Children's toys dotted the lawn. A small garden was beginning to grow where Eleanor's once stood. I didn't linger. There was nothing there for me anymore. They left plotting a future. They came back to find it was already gone. Emma began visiting regularly. We developed a quiet rhythm, cooking simple meals, watching crime shows, talking about the past without bitterness. She brought legal work to my apartment sometimes, and we worked side by side with classical music playing softly in the background. "You know they'll try again," she said one evening, reviewing some documents. "Let them," I replied. "The money's protected, the house is gone, and I've documented everything." The trust was ironclad. Even if they somehow proved I was incompetent, which I wasn't, the money would go to Emma and several charities, not to them. "I keep thinking about Mom," Emma said suddenly. "She would have seen through Grayson in 5 minutes flat." I smiled. Eleanor had that gift. She could read people instantly. I wish I'd known her better. She wished that too. A week later, another delivery arrived. A small package forwarded from my old address. Inside was the silver bracelet I'd given Melanie at her wedding, the one Eleanor had worn on special occasions. No note, just the bracelet. I held it briefly before placing it in the back of a drawer. Sarah from Brews and Views began including me in community events. I joined a woodworking club, offering to repair furniture for the retirement center. Using my hands again felt good. Not just retired, but repurposed. One morning, Frank called with news. Grayson's being investigated for fraud. Apparently, he's opened several accounts in other people's names. "Including mine," I said. "Yes. The credit card company flagged unusual activity. They're prosecuting, regardless of whether you file a complaint." I thought about Grayson sitting in a courtroom, watching his life unravel. No house to sell. No elderly father-in-law to manipulate. Just consequences. "Good," was all I said. Emma helped me prepare for my 72nd birthday. Nothing elaborate. Just a small gathering at the cafe. Sarah baked a chocolate cake. The chess club presented me with a hand-carved set. As we were cleaning up, my phone rang. Another unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. "Dad?" It was Melanie, her voice strained. "I just wanted to say happy birthday." I said nothing. "I know you probably don't want to talk to me," she continued. "I understand. What we did, what I did, it was unforgivable." Still I waited. "Grayson's gone. He left after the fraud charges. I'm staying with a co-worker until I can find a place." Her voice cracked. "I'm not asking for money or help. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." Truly sorry. Part of me wanted to believe her. The father who'd worked double shifts to pay for her education. The man who'd built a dollhouse by hand. But the engineer in me, the one who knew that foundations matter, recognized the structural weakness in her words. "Goodbye, Melanie," I said, and ended the call. Emma watched me from across the room. "You okay?" "I will be." That night, I dreamed of Eleanor. We were sitting in the garden behind our old house, watching hummingbirds dart among her flowers. "You did what you had to do," she said, "but don't let it harden you completely." I woke up feeling lighter somehow. The betrayal would always be there, a scar rather than an open wound. But there was room for other things now: friendship, purpose, even joy. I began volunteering at the local high school, teaching a workshop on structural engineering. The students' enthusiasm reminded me why I'd loved my profession: the perfect balance of art and science, creativity and precision. 2 months after moving to Silver Pines, I received an envelope. Inside was a single card, from Emma, handwritten, simple. To new beginnings, not born from revenge, but from choosing better people. I smiled and tucked it into the frame of Eleanor's photograph. That afternoon, I joined the chess group under the oak tree in the courtyard. My opponent, Walter, was a retired physics professor with a sharp mind and sharper wit. I moved my first piece, a pawn, and said, "One small step at a time, that's how you win." Walter laughed. "Is that your philosophy on chess or life?" "Both," I replied. "Both." As we played, I thought about the house I'd built and lost, the family that had betrayed me, and the new life I'd constructed from the ruins. It wasn't what I'd planned. It wasn't what I'd wanted. But it was mine, built with the same care and precision I'd once put into physical structures. Melanie and Grayson had underestimated me. They thought age had weakened me, made me pliable and forgetful. They never understood that a lifetime of building things teaches you exactly how to take them apart, and how to build again from the pieces that matter. Eleanor would have approved, not of the pain, perhaps, but of the principle. Stand your ground. Protect what's yours. Start over if you must, but never surrender your dignity. The betrayal had taken much from me, but in its place I'd found something unexpected. Freedom. They thought the game was over, but I had only played my opening move. Spring arrived at Silver Pines. The community garden bloomed with daffodils and tulips. I'd claimed a small plot where I planted tomatoes and basil, using techniques Eleanor had taught me. My hands remembered what to do, even as my heart still adjusted to her absence. Emma visited twice weekly now. Our relationship, once fractured by Melanie's interference, had strengthened into something neither of us expected. She brought dinner on Thursdays, usually takeout from local restaurants we wanted to try. I cooked on Sundays, simple meals from Eleanor's recipe cards. "Dad, there's something you should know," Emma said one Sunday as we washed dishes together. "Melanie contacted me." My hands stilled under the running water. "What did she want?" "To apologize. She asked about you, how you're doing, if you're taking care of yourself." "And what did you tell her?" "The truth, that you're doing well, that you've built a new life." Emma dried a plate carefully. "She asked if you might ever forgive her." I turned off the faucet. "And what did you say to that?" "That forgiveness isn't something you can demand. It's earned, if it comes at all." I nodded, grateful for her wisdom. That night after Emma left, I sat on my small balcony watching the sunset. I thought about forgiveness, what it meant, what it cost, whether I had any to spare for Melanie. The betrayal had changed me. Hardened parts that were once soft, softened parts that were once rigid. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dad, it's Melanie. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something important. Please call when you can." I set the phone down without responding. Whatever crisis she faced now wasn't mine to solve. The next morning, Frank called with unexpected news. "Harold, Grayson's being charged with multiple counts of financial fraud. The DA wants to know if you'll testify about the credit card he opened in your name." "Will my testimony make a difference?" I asked. "It would strengthen their case considerably, but it's entirely your choice." I thought about Eleanor, about what she would do. She believed in justice, but also in mercy. "I'll testify," I decided. The truth should be spoken. 2 days later, I sat across from Assistant District Attorney Marcia Collins, recounting the discovery of the fraudulent credit card and Grayson's other deceptions. She took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Mr. Whitmore, your testimony will help us build a strong case. Financial elder abuse is something we take very seriously." As I left the courthouse, I spotted Melanie sitting on a bench near the parking lot. She looked thinner. Her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Our eyes met briefly before I turned away. "Dad, wait," she called, hurrying after me. "Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stopped. "I left Grayson months ago," she said. "I had no idea about the fraud until the investigators contacted me." Her voice trembled. "I know saying sorry isn't enough. What we planned to do to you was unforgivable." "Then why are you here?" I asked. "I'm testifying against him too." She wiped a tear. "And I wanted to see you, to tell you that losing you has been the greatest consequence of all." I studied her face, searching for manipulation or deceit. I found only regret. "I need to go," I said finally. "I understand." She stepped back. "But Dad, I'm proud of the life you've built. You deserved better than what we tried to do to you." I nodded once, then walked to my car. That evening I told Emma about the encounter. "Do you believe she's changed?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "People can change, but trust, once broken, is harder to repair than any structure I've ever built." Emma nodded. "Whatever you decide about Melanie, I'm here." 2 weeks later, I testified at Grayson's preliminary hearing. He sat at the defense table, diminished and angry. He glared at me as I spoke, but I felt nothing in return. Not hatred, not satisfaction, just a hollow recognition of a life wasted on shortcuts and schemes. Melanie testified after me. I didn't stay to watch. Summer settled over Silver Pines. My tomato plants thrived in the warm Colorado sun. Sarah from the cafe invited me to a community art show where she was exhibiting her photography. My chess games with Walter became a daily ritual, each of us winning and losing in equal measure. On a warm July evening, Emma brought a special dinner to celebrate 6 months since my move to Silver Pines. "A toast," she said, raising her glass. "To new foundations." "To new foundations," I echoed. After dinner, I showed her the small woodworking project I'd been developing, a miniature model of Eleanor's garden from memory, complete with tiny bench and trellis. "It's beautiful, Dad," Emma said. "Mom would have loved it." "She would have found 3 things wrong with it," I chuckled. "But she would have loved it anyway." As Emma prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. "One more thing. Melanie asked if she could come to your birthday next month. I told her I'd ask you." I took a deep breath. "Tell her—" I paused, searching for the right words. "Tell her I'm not ready. But maybe someday." Emma nodded. "That's fair." After she left, I stood on my balcony watching fireflies rise from the community garden. The evening air carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and distant rain. My phone lay silent on the table beside me, no crisis demanding attention, no betrayal lurking in wait. I thought about the house I'd built and lost, the family that had fractured and reformed. The revenge I'd executed not with malice, but with precision. The consequences, both intended and unexpected. "We did all right, Eleanor," I whispered to the evening sky. "Didn't we?" The fireflies pulsed in response. Brief flashes of light in the gathering darkness. Revenge isn't just about what you take. It's about what you leave behind. Broken. My 73rd birthday arrived on a clear autumn day. Emma organized a small gathering in the Silver Pines community room. Walter brought his homemade apple pie. Sarah from the cafe created a photo collage of our chess matches and coffee mornings. The woodworking club presented me with a new set of carving tools. No sign of Melanie, as I'd requested. But a card arrived that morning, store-bought with a simple message, "Thinking of you today. M." I placed it on my dresser, neither opening it fully nor throwing it away. Some decisions could wait. Grayson's trial concluded 2 weeks later with a guilty verdict. 5 years for fraud, with additional penalties for elder abuse. I felt no satisfaction when Frank called with the news, just a quiet sense that justice had run its course. That evening, Emma brought takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. "A toast," she said, raising her glass, "to closing chapters." "And opening new ones," I added. After dinner, Emma handed me a thick envelope. "This came to my office for you." Inside was a formal document, Melanie's divorce decree, finalized the previous week. Along with it, a handwritten note. "I'm starting over. Working as an administrative assistant at a medical clinic. Small apartment, no fancy things. Learning to live with less and appreciate more. When you're ready, I'd like to talk. Emma watched me silently. What do you think? I asked. I think people can change when the consequences are severe enough, she replied. But trust is yours to give, not hers to demand. I nodded, folding the note carefully. Not yet. Fall turned to winter. Snow dusted the gardens at Silver Pines. I continued my routines. Chess with Walter, coffee with Sarah. Woodworking projects that grew more ambitious each month. Emma and I spent Thanksgiving together, cooking a small turkey and watching old movies. In December, a package arrived. A Christmas ornament in the shape of a small house, handcrafted and painted. The card read simply, "From your first home to your new one. Wishing you peace. M." I hung it on the small tree Emma had helped me decorate. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. The new year brought unexpected news. The couple who had purchased my old house wanted to meet me. They were planning renovations and hoped I might share insights about the original construction. I agreed, more curious than hesitant. Emma drove me there on a bright January afternoon. The young couple, Rachel and Michael, greeted me warmly. They'd preserved much of the original structure, but were adding a sunroom where Eleanor's garden had been. We found something during the initial work, Rachel said, leading me to the kitchen. Behind the old cabinets. She handed me a small metal box I recognized immediately. Eleanor's recipe box, the one I thought had been packed away. It must have slipped behind the cabinets during our last remodel. Thank you, I said, my voice thick. This means more than you know. On the drive home, I held the box in my lap, feeling Eleanor's presence closer than she'd been in years. You okay, Dad? Emma asked. Better than okay, I replied. That night, I called the number on Melanie's last note. Dad? Her voice was tentative, disbelieving. I'm not ready to meet, I said. But I wanted to say thank you for the ornament. It was thoughtful. Silence filled the line before she responded. Thank you for calling. It means a lot. Happy New Year, Melanie. Happy New Year, Dad. I hung up feeling neither triumph nor defeat, just the quiet recognition that life continues beyond betrayal, beyond revenge, beyond the rubble of what once was. The next morning, I joined Walter for our regular chess game under the indoor atrium. Spring was still months away, but the first move always holds promise. Your turn, Harold, he said as we settled in. I moved my pawn forward one space, one small step, then another, and another. That's how you rebuild a life.